Our next item is the resolution regarding the proposed amendment to the Minnesota Constitution. We bring this item forward based on feedback from the board's discussion at our September meeting. Following that discussion, the proposed resolution outlines our position in a few key ways, primarily saying that while we do not support the amendment as currently written, we do support having the phrase fundamental right to a quality education in the Constitution, so long as the other noted concerns are addressed, including how we define the standards against which quality is measured, keeping the phrase general and uniform system of public schools in the Constitution, including indisputable language about funding and taxation alongside the paramount duty phrase, and removal of the newly added final sentence to avoid confusion. I will move this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution regarding the proposed amendment to the Constitution, Minnesota Constitution, has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Director Ali?
Thank you very much. This is related to page amendment?
Yes, this.
Okay. I vote no on this resolution.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion. Go. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks to Director Caprini and Director Arneson for working on this and helping to put this together. I think as board members of a school district that serves the city of Minneapolis and many tens of thousands of kids, I think it's important for us to be clear about what the potential impact of this amendment will be on our communities. I think the effects will be, at best, non-existent and, at worst, potentially catastrophic for public schools. At the center of this amendment is the removal of the phrase general and uniform system of public schools from the state constitution. And it would be replaced with a right to a quality education as measured against uniform achievement standards as set forth by the state. So the supporters of this amendment think that the right to these uniform achievement standards are better than a general, uniform, and efficient, fully funded public school system. The proposed amendment goes on to say that there needs to be written in the Constitution a right for a parent to choose for their child a private, religious, or home school as an alternative to public education, as if somehow that right were currently at risk. And the amendment also removes language that states the legislature shall make such provisions by taxation or otherwise as will secure a thorough and efficient system of public schools throughout the state. Why does that need to be removed? We don't want to fund our public schools? I mean, clearly, we don't need to take it out of the Constitution, right? We can just underfund them into oblivion anyway, which has been happening. I suppose removing funding from the Constitution would just make the process of defunding our schools easier. So under this amendment, I'm having a lot of trouble trying to envision what our schools will look like in the future. Maybe that's really the goal. Maybe the goal is to create a system where it doesn't really matter what your school looks like or who you serve, as long as you end up meeting these uniform standards. You've met your obligation under the state constitution. Your school, if you could even really still call it that, doesn't have to be integrated. It doesn't have to serve English language learners or kids with disabilities. It doesn't have to promote civic participation or service to the public. Doesn't have to teach about the history of racism or teach about sexual health or have an anti-bullying policy. It just has to meet these uniform standards as set forth by the state. And uniform standards can also be known as standardized test results for anybody that's keeping track at home. And I guarantee that those uniform achievement standards as set forth by our friends over at the state capitol, who we have to beg and plead with every year to get more funds, those standards are not going to be in the best interest of our kids and our school communities here in Minneapolis. We know that bias in standardized testing has always, since the origin of testing, been the basis for racist policies. I say bias, of course, as though a uniform achievement standard could possibly not be biased, but we know, and as I teach my students, bias is inevitable in any human endeavor. The question is really who's biased and how strong. Originally, of course, testing was used to support racist eugenics and sterilization policies. Now, of course, people use it to devalue entire communities, schools, and districts. For decades now, because we in Minneapolis public schools serve those most in need, our schools are called bad or failing. Our staff and our teachers and our leaders are vilified and criticized simply because they work with those most in need. What's even worse is that these racist policies that denigrate our kids are cloaked in this language of a right to a quality education. You know, I'm a public school special education teacher in a junior high, and people often say to me when I tell them what I do for a living, they say, "Oh, bless you," you know, as though my students and I are somehow in need of blessings or sympathy. My students don't need to be blessed. They don't need pity. They don't need sympathy. What my students and I do need is for folks to understand that we have value. Our schools that serve those most in need, they have value. And that value is not based on some arbitrary, or not even arbitrary really, but some racially, culturally, and economically biased so-called uniform achievement standard. Our kids' value is based on the fact that they are people with something to give our community beyond a proficiency score. And the schools and people that serve them are valuable, essential parts of our community that are worthy of our support. They, in fact, have more value because they serve those most in need. All the people that serve our students, not just the literacy teachers, but the bus drivers, the special education assistants, even us board members have value. I mean, that's why we're here, right? Because we believe in this work. We believe that it has value, because we believe in the mission of our public schools to serve our communities. So to people that support this amendment, the sponsors, I'd like to suggest that if they want to help us in the mission that we have, they could maybe advocate for higher taxes on the wealthy, or maybe they could help us to deliver to the promise of special education funding. Or if they have some time, maybe they can come down and fill one of our open truck driver or special ed assistant positions or substitute teacher positions if they think they could do one of those jobs. Unfortunately, we can't pay people enough to fill those positions, and those positions, though they're not highly paid, they represent important parts of public service that is currently known by our Constitution as a public school system. So I know that what we do here is not cheap, and I know it takes a lot of human effort, but you know, our doors are also open to everyone, regardless of their proficiencies. So I don't support the Page Amendment. I do support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Ali.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The Page Amendment is a proposed amendment to the Minnesota State Constitution that will provide all children with a civil right to quality public education. So in other words, according to the Page, Justice Page, and there's a gap education, there's a disparity in all 80 counties, 87 counties of the state of Minnesota. And in order to make the change, one has to come up with something. So there's a need, you know? The black and brown students are not proficient in math, science, reading. And you all know that the facts. And therefore, one has to be accountable of that. So this is high-level advocacy, and this is state level. It's not something specifically talking to Minneapolis public schools. It's talking about 87 counties where all the disparities exist, all 87 counties. And these private citizens are trying their best to create awareness and to bring the high-level accountability to our legislators. So I am not sure even if this is something that we need to involve, other than we are one of the districts of 87 counties. I don't know what's the special interest of us. In fact, We are supposed to be the people who's supposed to be advocating for these students who are not proficient in math and science, because we have the largest black and brown students in our district. Any individual, including our guests here, if anybody comes with an ideas that can improve, I think we should give a room. We should not try to prove them wrong, even without seeing the results of this. And the Page Amendment is about bringing this pandemic of disparities. It's another pandemic, and we can, you know, we have the numbers here. Unfortunately, you know, in Minneapolis Public Schools, we have the numbers here. You know, the kids, we are not meeting the needs of black and brown students, period. And this disparity exists in all 87 counties in the state of Minnesota. I don't know why we are involved in this and trying to address it as Page Amendment is talking to us. I rest in my case, madam.
Thank
I'll
you.
be voting no this resolution. Thank you.
Director Ali. Director Caprini?
Well, thank you, Chair Ellison. I do support this resolution, and I'm really proud of the language that we've added to it or put back in, and because I do agree with a lot of what you're saying, Director Ali. But my concern is, how do we pay for it? How is it going to get? And they can say paramount duty, but really, what is that? That just means that it's a big deal. But there's no money attached to it. So for me, it's kind of like thinking about, I'll just say roughly $141 million that literally, and then think about the 87 counties that you mentioned. They all receive some of their funding from taxation. So, I mean, the math is astronomical when I think about what that would do to public institutions. Because we're always going to have public institutions. And, you know, in my brain, I go directly to the housing crisis that we're in, and the fact that the federal government, you know, stopped funding public housing. So my fear is, what happens in 15, 20, 25, even 30 years? Are our children, the children that we're still trying to reach, going to school in buildings that are crumbling or that are just, you know, packed with kids that have been pushed out of these other schools that the Page Amendment says you can go there, but we're not saying that they can't. Parents have a choice where they can send their children. My concern is that we could literally be setting ourselves up for the kind of crisis we're in with housing. And that's just how I feel about it. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, Director Ali, to your question, why is Minneapolis getting involved? I think Director answered that question when he said, what's the outcome of this amendment, this constitutional change? Maybe to Minneapolis Public Schools, maybe nothing, but maybe it could be a catastrophe for us. And so this resolution just says, okay, we agree that there should be a fundamental right to quality education. We do believe that, but we want to make sure it's funded. We want to make sure that it's not measured, you know, with standardized tests. And that's just what this resolution is talking about. And so, yes, and. So yes, we support the amendment, and we need to see these changes. Or no, but. No, we don't support the amendment, but if you added this language, we could. So, Director Ali?
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the debate this debate belongs to the state capital, not here, in my opinion. That's the people who are, this is above our pay grade. That's the legislators that we have elected them, and they need to have the responsibility. They are accountable of making sure that each child in the state of Minnesota gets best education, regardless of their background and ethnicity. Okay, so I hear that Director Cabrini mentioned about the finance. That's what legislators are supposed to, that's what they need to discuss about it, as they are going to have the debate on this. But rather now, it seems when we rush this before the debate take place, I believe people may say Minneapolis public schools have this opinion on this matter. Again, this is not our mandate, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Elamine?
You know, I have to say that I agree with Director Ali and just trying to figure out what's the purpose of this resolution. It's like we're trying to prove a point. And I would rather for us not to take a position than to try to prove a point. Unfortunately, we have come to this drastic measure to where we have to bring the awareness to the failure of our Black and brown children. I mean, we are at a point where nothing has been done. Our children are continuously failing. Our families are continuously falling apart, being pulled away and separated, unaffordable housing, all those different measures that we can talk about. So for me, I support the Page Amendment, but to do a resolution to try to prove who's right or wrong, I can't support that. Our children are the ones who are suffering, and we are at a point where whatever we have to do, we're gonna do it to make sure that they begin to succeed and that they begin to benefit from being in our public institutions, and that our public institution recognizes the failure that has taken place over decades. This is unfortunate that we have to even get to this point, but we are here. And to try to bring something like this to me says we're trying to prove a right or wrong. Just stand back and let the matter go on its own, like we have done on several different things. So for me, I don't support it.
Thank you. Director Soria?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really do appreciate this conversation because, like, at the end of the day, you know, I agree with some points of the different directors that spoke. You know, we cannot deny the fact that our district is $67 million underfunded for special ed and ELL, right? So the state does have a responsibility, you know, to all of our children. And I just fear, sincerely, living here in Minnesota, how we are losing ground to this right-wing, you know, conservative agenda that doesn't, like, nothing is going to be resolved at the Capitol, honestly. Nothing is going to take place, right? So I do appreciate that we're trying to do something, but I do have a question, well, two questions. Did we engage in conversations with any of the advocates to come up with this language proposal for the resolution? And because I do appreciate the fact that, you know, it's like, I do support the Page Amendment. I do support that, you know, something has to give in, something has to happen. Good intentions, I don't feel it's gonna get anywhere. And I'm not afraid to say that publicly, honestly, because we don't have the political will in the state, and we don't have the majority either in the Senate. So that's my question, because that will be a concern if we brought something together without taking in consideration people that have worked very hard in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Caprini?
Thank you. What's your name?
Director Ellison.
Sure, Allison. I'm sorry, I'm hungry.
It's late.
I am, oh gosh, what was I gonna say? I'm so hungry. This is, Director Ali, I appreciate your passion, and I don't disagree that, quality is important, and I don't disagree with you either, but I cannot, in good faith, believe that the legislature is going to fund us in a way that is going to support us to even exist eventually. Paramount duty, there's no language about how we pay for it. Nothing. It completely is eliminated from the language. And that's supposed to make us do better. Because now we're really going to figure something out, because they took away our funding, but nothing's free. And, about 15 years ago, maybe not quite that long ago, 12 years ago, I asked the question, what does it cost? What is the per pupil dollar amount? I asked this to someone from the legislature, and not in this area. What is the number? They quickly found someone else to talk to. They couldn't answer it. They could not answer what that per pupil dollar amount is. And so what does that tell me? That tells me that if it's a paramount duty, and that's all that it is, and it's going to be quality, and you're going to take out all the language that has anything to do with funding, to me that says they could give us a bag of rocks and say, good luck, go teach the children. And I'm not trying to be funny. It's just like, this is a big deal. And you know what? It's not just the state or the legislature who's going to make this decision. This is an attempt to put this on the ballot. So this is going to become something that we're all going to have conversations about. So in my opinion, I would like for us to get to a place where we can either align with the language that we've put together in this resolution that secures funding, $141 million for this year. And it could fluctuate. But when you talk about 87 counties and public institutions, we're looking at Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Arneson?
Thanks. I am just going to say that I disagree with the idea that this debate doesn't belong here and it only belongs at the state. I believe that this, regardless of what happens, that with this discussion, this decision at the state level will have a direct impact not only on our school district, but every school district in Minnesota. And I think that it's appropriate for every school board to weigh in on this. It was a group of private citizens that wrote this resolution and brought it to the state for consideration, and it is more than appropriate for a group of policymakers, local policymakers and school boards to weigh in on this. And this is how we do it. This is the format that we have available to us, and it's through resolution, and this is how we have a discussion as a board and ultimately reach a decision via vote. So with that, Chair, I'd like to call the question.
All right. Call the question. So no further discussion? All those in...
You need to vote on calling the question.
Oh. It's not debatable. All those in favor of call the question, say aye. Aye.
No.
All those opposed, say no.
I say no.
I'm sorry.
You vote. So.
Okay, I understand. It's the first time that's happened.
No, it's okay.
Yes, it's a little no. Did we catch? I'm not sure
Are you
if that
asking?
passed. I'm not.
I believe it passed, but
Yes.
I heard two no's and
You heard two no's and so 4 ayes.
Call the roll call,
So debate ends. So we're going to vote on the resolution.
Madam Chair, I'm so sorry, but I did ask a question and that was not answered. So before I vote, I have to have that response. Whether we did engage in conversations with the leaders that have been advocating for this amendment.
I'm sorry?
Point of order, the question's been called.
Yeah, no further discussion. I'm
So
sorry.
I cannot support it if my question is not answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
That's disrespectful. So disrespectful, Director.
so on the resolution, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those
No.
opposed say no.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4. I heard 4 ayes and 3 noes. So that-
No.
Ali?
I say no.
Should we, Brian, can we do a roll call on this vote, please?
Yes, Director Arneson,
Aye.
Elamine,
No.
Ali,
No.
Ferrio,
No.
Inns,
Yes.
Jordan, Caprini,
Aye.
Polly, Chair Ellison.
Yes. So 4 ayes, 3 noes, that resolution passes. So,
Not the resolution.
I'm sorry?
What passed is not the resolution, it's according to the question. That's what, the resolution, we have to vote for the resolution. That's how
We
I,
just, no, we called the question, that passed. All those in favor say aye, all those opposed say no. That passes.
okay.
So then we just did a roll call on the resolution.
all right, that's fine. Anyway, the results will be the same.
We did vote on the call to question. Yes.
That's fine. The results will be the same, so anyway, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, if we don't change what we're doing regardless of what passes, if our children continue to fail, we're not gonna have children in the schools. So I'm
Thank you.
just gonna put that out there, regardless.
Thank you. And Director Sorio, yes, I had conversations with the authors of the, so,
I think it's too late for the answer.
so thank you. Moving